What's up guys, my name is Maushi, the apprentice designer. Welcome to my channel. So in today's tutorial we are learning how to draft a blazer jacket, a cropped blazer jacket. This was my inspiration and this is the pattern testing. All right, I made this for a wedding and it turned out great. Okay guys, so like I said before, we are drafting a blazer jacket, but this is a cropped blazer jacket for those of us who want it simple but chic. Alright, so this is the back pattern and we're starting by ruling out our starting point, which is also the shoulder line. Now you're going to mark in our bodice blocks. Alright, so first calculate your bust point by dividing your bust circumference into 4 and adding 1.5. Alright, then you insert your shoulder to waist and then 2-inch allowance. Alright, just as you see me do, use your measurements. Now once that is done, we are going to rule our lines through. Alright, I'll denote the allowance with a red marker just so that it's visible. Let's call this the bust point, the waist, and then the allowance. Next, your shoulder measurement, you divide that into 2 and mark it all the way across. Then you mark your neck width and then your neck depth. Since this is a back pattern, the neck width, of course, 3 inches, the neck depth 1.5. So next, mark 1 inch beneath the shoulder measurement. Alright, we are trying to find our shoulder slope. Alright, just as you see me do. Now once that is done, you insert your armhole depth measurement. Alright, then the resulting point, you rule a line through, that is our chest line, making it more visible with a marker, just as you see me do. Now once that is done, put in your shoulder measurement here too, just so that we have a straight line for our armhole depth. Good. Now what we're going to do is we're going to find the midpoint of our armhole line. Right here. Since my armhole depth is 7 inches, half of that is 3.5. Now what you just saw me do was my bust measurements divided into 4. Alright, so you connect it to that half, the armhole depth, just as I've done. Alright. Now you are going to divide your bust span. Mine is 7 inches, so I will divide that into 2 and mark it on the chest line, the bust point line, the waist line, and then on the allowance. And I'll make it visible with my marker. Now I'm going to take in my waist with 1/2 inch here, 1/2 inch there, just as you see me do. Now if your bust is larger, you can take in with 0.75 here, 0.75 there, which in total is 1.5. Now what you did for the waist, how much you took in by the waist, take in that same measure on the allowance. And then you just connect, just as you see me do. Alright. Now we had inserted our bust measurement divided into 4. Now you're going to add in a seam allowance of 1.5 inch. Alright, and you do the same for the rest of the lines. So here you put in your waist measurement, then you measure the dart intake, add it, and then you add your 1.5 inch seam allowance, and you do the same thing as you did on the waistline for your allowance line. Alright, and then you roll your line through from the bust, the chest, sorry, all the way to the allowance. Now because the waist and the allowance are the same, you see we have a straight line through. Yes, and this is basically it for the back pattern. Alright, now we drafted this back pattern so that we can use the neck measurement to draft our collar, the collar of our lapel. Once that is done, we just cut out our pattern, just as you see me do. There, that's it. So this is our back pattern. We are moving on to our front pattern. So guys, align the side of your back pattern to one edge of your pattern paper. Now, we have to ensure that we have enough room at the neck area. Alright, now from the neck depth, I ensured I had 7 inches all the way up. Alright, because I want the lapel's collars length at 5 inches. Alright, now from the neck depth all the way across, ensure that you have at least 4 inches, and then you make your demarcations. So this is our starting point. Alright, now lay your pattern on top again and then make your demarcations. Alright, just as you see me do, all the way to the allowance. Now once that is done, you rule your lines through, just as you see me do. I just want to ensure that I have it laid correctly. There. So I'll rule my lines across the chest line, the bust point line, the waist, and then the allowance. Let's label it bust point, chest, bust point, BP, the waist, then the allowance. See, we have 7 inches from the starting point all the way up, making room for our lapel's collar. Right, and you'll find that we will have 4 inches all the way across from the neck depth. Now, from the shoulder to the allowance is 18 inches. Alright. Once all is said and done, our waist should be around 15 and a half. Alright, only be 16. So the allowance will ensure that we get a decent shoulder to waist level. I'm making it more visible with my marker. Now, I've made the starting points more visible with the marker. What remains is the room, the allowance we've made for the lapel. Alright. Once again, I'm making it more visible with my marker, the blocks. I'm inserting my neck width of 3 inches for someone with my bust and circumference of 34 and a shoulder of 14. And I came down by 3 inches, so it's 3 by 3 inches. Alright. Now use your measurements, whichever one that works for you. Now insert your shoulder measurement, 14 minus 14, divide that into 2, you have 7. Mark your shoulder slope point connected to the end of your neck width. Alright, this is our shoulder slope. Because our shoulder doesn't sit straight, it slopes. Now insert the half shoulder measurement here too. Connect it to the shoulder slope to get your armhole depth measurement. Now to find the armhole depth measurement, in case you are not conversant, you can just divide your bust circumference into 6, then you add 1.5. Now here we are finding the midpoint. Then you go in by half an inch. Insert your bust circumference divided into 4 over here. My bust is 34, divide that into 4 and you have 8.5. Then you connect. Just as you see me do. Pretty simple, huh? Now, you come 1 inch beneath your bust point and you rule a line through. Now here is where the tip of your dart will sit, because the dart tip shouldn't touch your bust point line. Alright, it should always be 1 inch beneath the bust point line. So that's the line you've seen me draw. Sorry. So what you're going to do next is your bust span. All right, divide that into 2. Then you mark that on your bust point line, your dart tip line, your waistline, and then on the allowance, and then you make a straight line through, just as you see me do. You take in your waist, half inch here, half inch there, depending on your waist measurement. All right, then you do the same thing on your allowance. Then you connect, just as we had done for the back pattern. So you measure the neck, all right, measure the neck. This was why we drew the back pattern first. You measure the neck, all right, and you keep that in mind for later. So what we're going to do next is we are drawing in our buttons panel, all right, 1 inch, 1 inch going out from the starting point, all right, then you connect. Now demarcate your lapel's length and then connect the end of the neck width to that point. My lapel's length will be at 15.5. All right, once that is done, extend your button by 1 to 2 inches. All right, if you want it exaggerated, you can go ahead and do that, but I extended mine by 1.5 inches. All right, good. So you connect just as you see me do. Now once that is done, I'm going to make it more visible, all right, with my marker. So these red lines demarcate the lapel. Now remember that neck we had taken, yes, take that measurement and ensure it goes straight with a red line that is going up. All right, mine was around 3.5 and a few more, so I will insert that here. All right, now we want the collar to sit gently around the neck here, so we go out by 1/2 inch, just as you see me do. Do the same thing. So once that is done, marking your collar's length. Mine is 5 inches. Ensure it aligns with the second line we had drawn. All right, and then you step up over here by 1/2 inch, connect it to the 1 inch buttons panel, and then you are going to extend the line to meet the collar's length, all right, with a curve, just as you see me do. So this is it. We're basically done with the curve, with the collar, all right, and we make that visible with our marker, just as you see me do. Once that is done, we mark in our measurements. All right, we had already inserted our bust measurement divided into 4, so we add in our 1.5 seam allowance. You go on to the waist, your waist divided into 4, add your dart intake of, mine was 1 inch, and then you add your allowance of 1.5 inches. Do the same thing you did on your waist on the allowance line, just as you see me do. All right, good. Put in your measurement, add in the dart intake, add in your seam allowance of 1.5 or whichever allowance you want to use. It shouldn't be that many, all right? Between 1.5 to 2 inches is fine. Once that is done, we connect the lines, the dots together. Then this is basically it. All right. Now, in that video that I had made for the wedding, I had gone ahead to use this pattern just as it is. All right. But for the tutorial that comes next from this video, I am going to separate the front into two. All right. Good. So measure your shoulder and then divide that into two. Then connect a line straight from that to join this. Now once that is done, you're going to cut out. But let's work on the front pattern also. Measure the shoulder that you have, divide that into two, connect it to this panel. Alright. Now the jacket, the blazer jacket I'll be making out of these patterns is a blazer jacket with a mesh back, a mesh center back. Alright, or a blazer jacket with a basket center back. Alright, and it will be gorgeous, so please be sure to check out the next video that comes after this. Alright, so here is the side back and the other side is the side front. Separate your front panel also into two. Ensure you trim out the dart. Alright, and then this is it. Now I have a whole lot planned in the next video, so please be sure to check it out. So here are our patterns. Alright, here they are. Now because we have already added allowance, 1.5 inch allowance on the side, you won't add any allowance there, but you add an allowance at the front. Alright, 1/2 inch allowance, and then you add 1/2 inch allowance here. Alright, so that it can be joined to the side. Here's our back and patterns. You ensure you add 1/2 inch in between these sides so that you can join them together. Alright guys, so please check out the next video. I have a whole lot planned out for you.